Good morning, everybody. It's coming. Going to be here soon. Anyway, foggy day. Clear, but foggy day here today. Really foggy. Wonder what your weather's like where you are. Hey, are you an idolater? Bet you'd probably say, no, I'm not. I don't worship idols. When we typically think of idols and idolaters, we think of people that have made some kind of like a statue or an object out of wood or gold or stone or whatever, and then they tend to view it as their god, and that would be a proper definition of idolatry. But it's possible you and I are idolaters and don't even know it, and that would be quite the shock to our system. We're looking again today at the second commandment: you shall not make for yourselves an idol. Now, I want you to know something. I've been meaning to say this for a few episodes now. Most of the 10 commandments are said in a negative fashion. Don't do something, don't murder, don't steal, don't have other gods, don't envy, all those kinds of things. But they're not actually a negative thing. They are meant to be opportunity for something positive. Anytime you see a negative command, such as this, you shall not make for yourself an idol, there's an opposite positive thing for us to be doing. And in this case, it's let God be your God. Let God be my God, and don't have substitutes for God. So you shall not make for yourselves an idol. How in the world would we ever fall into the trap of being an idolater? Well, I'm going to come back to 1 Corinthians 10. Let's look at Ephesians chapter 5. Paul says this to the young believers in Ephesus: but among you there must not be even a hint of sexual immorality, or of any kind of impurity, or of greed, because these are improper for God's holy people. So catch them out. Catch these: sexual immorality right here. Oh, it didn't work. There we go. Sexual immorality, or impurity, or greed. Now, these are improper for God's holy people. Nor should there be obscenity, or foolish talk, or coarse joking. We should probably come back and look at those a little more to define what they mean, because some people take them to mean some things they probably aren't. But we're not supposed to be involved with obscenity or foolish talk or coarse joking. And the last one's pretty obvious, like telling a dirty joke or whatever, which are out of place, but rather we should substitute thanksgiving. So don't, remember, whenever there's negative, there's a positive. So don't do those things, but in their place, substitute thanksgiving. Now, here's the heart of the matter for our discussion today. For this you can be sure, no immoral, impure, or greedy person, referencing all these things in the verse before, such a person is an idolater. You can be sure that they don't have an inheritance in the kingdom of God or the kingdom of Christ. Let no one deceive you with empty words, for because of such things God's wrath comes on those who are disobedient. Therefore, do not be partners with them. So, here's the thing. If you are involved, if I am involved in persistent, immoral, impure, or greedy behavior, persistent obscenity, foolish talk, coarse joking, I have become an idolater. I might not have a physical statue or object that I bow down and worship, but all of these things are an indication the heart is substituting something for God and taking God's place. I want you to know this. The people that Paul is talking about are not people over here that believe in a different God. He's talking about people right here in our camp who believe in the same God, but are involved in this kind of behavior in such a way that it has taken the place of God in their lives. In other words, they're looking for something in these things that they should be looking for from God. It could be pleasure, it could be acceptance, it could be any number of motivations in our life. And in one sense, the scriptures aren't concerned with what is the motivation for why you're doing it. Sometimes it's helpful. Reflect on your life. Why do I do these? If I'm doing these things, why am I doing these things? Am I telling dirty jokes in order to get a laugh, in order to be accepted by the people around me? Because I like to be liked by the people around me. If that's you, then you are substituting God's acceptance of you for people's acceptance of you. And you're settling for a poor substitute. Or any kind of sexual immorality. Sexual immorality is about more than just the act of the sex itself. There's other things going on. And you are substituting God's perfect and holy plan and your relationship with him, and you're substituting something of far lesser value that's actually wrong and bad in its place. And so if you and I do those kinds of things, and especially if we persist in doing those things, we become idolaters. 1 Peter 4 says it this way: therefore, since Christ suffered in his body, arm yourselves also with the same attitude, because whoever suffers in the body is done with sin. In other words, Christ suffered in his body in order to do away with sin. When we suffer, we can see it as an opportunity to drive us back to Jesus and to be done with the sin principle, looking for satisfaction or joy or happiness or something from the sinful act, and finding it in the same place that Jesus did. Where did Jesus find help when he had to suffer on the cross? He found it by calling out to God himself. Now, as a result, they do not live the rest of their earthly lives for their evil desires, but rather for the will of God. For you have spent enough time in the past doing what pagans choose to do. Oh, I cut that off. Living in idolatry. Oh, no, here it is. Somehow it got separated. And we're going to fix that. Living in debauchery or wild living, lust, drunkenness, orgies, carousing, and detestable idolatry. They are surprised that you do not join them in the reckless wild living and the heap abuse on you. So, let's come back to 1 Corinthians chapter 10. Now, these things occurred as examples to keep us from setting our hearts on evil things as they did. The principle is setting our hearts, setting our hearts on evil things. That's what we are in danger of doing. Do not be idolaters. When we set our hearts on evil things and persist in those evil things, we have become idolaters. As some of them were, as it is written. I realize I've been talking to you about verses and I didn't even have them on the screen. That's funny. And the people sat down to eat, drink, and got up to indulge in revelry or wild living. So here's the thing. No, you might not be an idolater in the sense that you have a statue somewhere, a Buddha, or I don't care what it is. You don't have a statue per se. You don't have a physical object that you go and you worship before. But if you cling to what is wrong and pursue it as a regular part of your life, I'm not talking about the occasional sin. We all sin from time to time. That's part of being human yet, even as Christians. I'm talking about persisting in that kind of lifestyle. And the net result being you substitute those things for God. If you and I do that, we have become idolaters and we break the second commandment. You shall not make for yourself an idol. So that's my word of warning for today. But the positive part of it is we have God, who is meant to be everything to us, and to find the center of our being established in him and on him and through him. And that's the upside of what we're called to do today. So that's my word for the day. Don't be an idolater. It's not a good place to be. Anyway, hope to see you on Friday as we continue on in our series on the 10 Commandments, or God's top 10 list of good behavior. Have a good couple days.